5 effects of sexual sin. Number 1. Guilt and fear. One could enjoy the pleasures that comes from sexual sins, but it only lasts for a while, and after that, the guilt sets in. We see this play out especially after the first time. The realization of what you've done hits hard, and you cannot help but feel bad about the act. This is because sexual sins goes beyond having fun and going against God's commandments. When Paul said we should flee from fornication in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, he goes ahead and tells us why. Every other sin you commit is against a person or against God, but when you involve in fornication and other sexual sins, you sin against your own body. It's like desecrating a sacred altar, and the memories of the wrong you have done lives with you for a long time. Sexual sins could take various forms, including pornography, which is becoming a serious issue in the society of today, fornication, adultery, masturbation, and others. When you play with any of these things, you have to deal with the feelings of guilt later. For one, the devil will constantly remind you of what you've done and make you feel unrighteous before God. Even when God has forgiven you, will you find it easy to forgive yourself? When you are married and you engage in adultery, how do you feel every time you have to face your spouse or when the issue of infidelity is brought up? The feeling of guilt is not one that you can easily get rid of unless you get rid of the sin itself. Many people try to get out of this going in the opposite direction by engaging in the act over and over again and thus searing their conscience. This itself is destructive and can lead to effects that damages a person's relationship in totality. Another thing is fear. You are constantly scared of someone finding out. You do not want anyone to know you have been involved in such immoral acts, so you are always conscious. There is also fear of unwanted pregnancy and of contracting sexually transmitted diseases. And when you live in fear, you lose your peace of mind. So the next time you're tempted to engage in such acts, you might want to ask yourself if it's worth all the troubles and emotions that comes with it. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind. Engaging in sexual sins only takes away your peace of mind and replaces it with guilt and fear. Even if you've been engaging in these sins before, it's not too late to stop and retrace your steps. The blood of Christ still cleanses from all unrighteousness and is able to make you whole again, delivering you from guilt and fear of previous sins. Number 2, shame and emptiness. You do not go around announcing that you have just masturbated or had sex with someone that is not your spouse. As an unmarried person, it's a thing of shame to be found not being a virgin. Why is that? It's because it is shameful. When a person has carnal knowledge of you, they can always use it against you. You cannot stand up to them the way you previously would because you've already given yourself out. Especially when it comes to women. Some men take pride in conquering women by having sex with them. To them, you are merely a conquest, another of the so many they can add to the list. Where is the pride in being used? There is only shame in it, and you will be unable to lift your head among your mates. When Amnon defiled Tamar, she had to wear rags and cover herself in ashes. It was a sign of shame of losing her virginity in the vilest manner, and before her marriage too. Understandably, the world has turned things upside down, and sex is being promoted in ways that are beyond imaginations. From the programs and adverts on the TV, the magazines and newspapers, to the pop-ups on the internet, we are being bamboozled almost every minute by sexually arousing activities. Men talk about their conquests like it's something to be proud of, and even women are not left out. Sadly, those that uphold purity and chastity are being silenced as though they are in the wrong. Do not be fooled, though. Many of these people are not proud of the things they have done, and if they could do things all over again, they would rather remain pure. The indifference and crassness are usually born out of a need to cover up for the shame they feel and the emptiness that follows their actions. Truth is that we are creatures of emotions and there is no denying our sexuality. However, when we go about satisfying these sexual needs outside the sanctity of marriage, it is anything but fulfilling. The pleasures last for just a short moment, and then there is this hole or void afterwards. It's not a great feeling at all. You do not even remember the pleasure at all, and in a bid to fill the void, many make the mistake of repeating the act over and over again. The fact is that you cannot get lasting happiness or pleasure from those things. It can only be gotten from God and by doing His will. Number 3, relationships collapse. There are so many side effects of sexual sins that people do not talk about or have not come to realize. If you're in a relationship with someone and you happen to get involved sexually before marriage, there is every possibility that things would not be the same anymore. You would not be able to relate freely as you used to, and there will be a lack of trust between both parties. I mean, what is stopping them from doing things with other people as well if they could so easily give in to you? Moreover, in wanting to keep that person, you might find yourself trying to satisfy them sexually rather than bonding in other areas. There will come a point where sex will not be enough, and then the relationship would experience a gradual breakdown. Similar things happen when you are involved with someone else other than your partner. No matter how hard a person tries to pretend and cover up, there will still be lapses that cannot be covered. Same goes with masturbation and pornography. People tend to withdraw to themselves and have no need for the other partner. In essence, sexual sins cause your relationships to deteriorate gradually until there is almost nothing left of it. Number 4, addiction. It's better not to get involved in any form of immorality because once you start, it might be difficult to get out of it. You hardly find people who just commit adultery once and then quit, or masturbation. It usually becomes a continuous process, and many find at one point or the other that they cannot do without these things. Some people cannot do without having sex a day. Many are addicted to watching pornography and subsequently start masturbating. These addictions go on to affect other areas of their lives, but still, they find they cannot help themselves no matter how hard they try. It takes the help of God and sometimes counselors to bring a person out of this bondage, because it's a bondage that can eventually destroy a person's life if care is not taken. According to certain studies, it has physical, mental, emotional, and psychological effects, let alone your spiritual life. However, there is nothing God cannot do if you call on Him for help. Number 5. Separation from God. This is the worst of the consequences that results from sexual sins. The Bible clearly states that our bodies are temple of Christ and so should not be desecrated by involving in sexual activities that are not within the boundaries of marriage. God understands our needs, even the sexual ones. He created us and made these parts along with the emotions and feelings after all. However, He places a line on how you should meet those sexual needs. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4 says, "Marriage is honorable in all and the bed undefiled." The only person that you should have sexual relations is with your spouse, because God sees you as one. The moment you step out of that line, you have defiled God's temple. And God cannot dwell where there is iniquity of any form. He will leave. People try to justify certain things like masturbation and watching pornography. They think that since they're not involving anyone else, then they are free of guilt, but that is not the case. How do you feel when doing these things? Do you feel God's presence with you? Does it make you draw closer to God? Does it help your Christian walk? These are questions that should be asked instead of trying to rationalize everything. The Bible is full of commandments that condemns sexual sins over and over. No matter what the world says, the Bible is clear on its stand. No immoral person will enter into the kingdom of God. Jesus went a step further from the law of Moses to tell us that if anyone should as much as look lustfully upon a man or woman, desiring them in their hearts, it is as good as though they have committed the sin of adultery or fornication. God does not dwell in an unholy environment. He cannot stand it by his divine nature. So, when you're involved in sins of adultery, fornication, masturbation, and the likes, you are only telling the Holy Spirit to move out of your life and automatically inviting the devil and his agents. Remember, nothing is worth your relationship with God. It's the most important part of your life and should take priority in your decisions. Any form of sin, including sexual sins, would lead to separation from God. Trust me, you do not want to experience life without God.